Hare Krishna Bhagavat Maharaj. You look very beautiful there. Nice Kusum Sarovar picture behind you. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part in this. I hope you're all tolerant with me. I'm not very expert. This is the first time I've tried to organize such a thing. I want to thank Amritesh Gour Prabhu, who's co-hosting with me in case our connection drops, which it did like 3 times on me yesterday when I was Zooming. We have a new connection since then. So our program today, we just want to welcome everybody. This is the 25th uh, annual separation festival for our revered spiritual master, Srimad Govinda Swami Maharaj. It was 25 years ago on this day in Sridham Mayapur that Guru Maharaj left this world and from our external vision. And we're having this program. Someone asked me recently why we didn't have more God brothers speaking. I'd like that. But here in Bhubaneswar, many God brothers are speaking, and also I think in Belgium and France and different places. We wanted to have some special friends online. And also the temple asked me to keep it to 2 sessions for certain times on these 2 days. So it'll be today and tonight, starting Indian time, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And then the same times again tomorrow. So we're going to start today with a short video clip, just about 5 minutes of Guru Maharaj. It's titled Develop Greed for Sadhu Sangha, just to set the tone. And then we'll hear something from Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, Devamrita Maharaj, Parthasarathi Maharaj, and then we have our Bhagavat Maharaj, and then Raghava Pandit Prabhu, and then our dear God sister Anuradha Dasi, and then Vaijayanti Mala Mataji. And then we'll have, if anybody has any questions or comments, we'll give 10 minutes or so for that if all goes well. We're not expecting everything's going to go well, though, because it's the material world that just doesn't work like that. So I want to turn on this video now of Guru Maharaj.
Ada kene apa kemadawan Anda terus sanggang ini guru DP di Sumba.
Gita, Gita Krishna said, give up these three: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, love, greed, and anger. These are enemies. If you will capture three enemies, these three enemies, then they will drag you to the hell. They are door to the hell. But give up this thing. You understand? But greed of the Lord is there. Lord has greed. You understand? And this greed is also utilized in service of the Lord. You understand? Yes. You should utilize this greed for the service of the Lord. How can you utilize this greed for the service of the Lord? How can you? Utilize the greed, but material greed should be given up. But this greed should be utilized for Krishna service. How will it be utilized? Develop the sadhu sange Krishna katha ei matro jai. Sansara jinite ar kon vastu nai. Develop greed for sadhu sangha. And here Krishna katha. That is the greed to be developed. You understand? Sadhu sange Krishna katha ei matro jai. Sansara jinite ar kon vastu nai. One should develop this greed of sadhu sangha. How can I have sadhu sangha more and here Krishna Katha next year, Krishna Katha from his lips, more and more, then is no satisfaction in it. You understand? No satisfaction or trupti. Because nectar, the more you take, the more you hanker after it. No satisfaction. You understand? And once you develop this greed, then you'll be able to conquer this Maya. So, no other thing is there. To conquer this illusion, you are an illusion. Only to have sadhu sangha and hear Krishna Katha, Nectarian Krishna Katha. Once you develop greed for it, you must be greedy enough. You understand? Yes, this is utilization greed, the service of Krishna. Krishna has greed, therefore we have greed. Supreme Lord has greed, therefore we have greed. But Krishna has something we have. Because we are eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Isn't it? Manipanso Jiva Mukhi, Jiva Bhutta Sanatana. Eternally we are part and parcel. Supreme Lord, what Supreme Lord has, we have. So he has greed, that we have greed. But that greed should be utilized for the service of humanity. All right, very good. You make advancement in the spiritual path. You understand? And if you misuse it, abuse it, and develop material greed, then it will drag to the hell. You understand?
Hare Krishna. Shri Gurudev Ki Jai. So now I'd like to welcome, although he's not physically present or even online present, but I'd like to welcome Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, who is a very senior godbrother. He was Guru Maharaj's personal servant on a number of occasions, especially when Guru Maharaj would go to Australia. And on the urging of many senior devotees and many of his godbrothers, some years ago, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu started accepting disciples. So we'd like to hear something from Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu. So please give him your ear and your eye.
Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Maharaj. We'd like to start off by thanking Madhavananda Prabhu for giving us this opportunity to speak something about our beloved spiritual master, Sri Srimad Govinda Swami Maharaj. As an unqualified disciple of Gurudev, how can I speak about him, he who is a Sat Bhakta and very dear to Sri Krishna? We have so many desires within our heart. We are always looking for dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So, how can we speak about someone who is totally free from these four purusarthas? Gurudev, out of his causeless mercy, gave me the responsibility of managing the temple, Krishnavaram Temple, Bhubaneswar, and now also I am managing this Gadagiri Temple. During his physical presence, I was getting so many troubles from many directions, and sometimes I was not able to tolerate this situation.
I'm not hearing him now.
Haribol.
I'm also saying to you, you should tolerate and go. While listening to Gurudev's class, I came to learn that tolerance is one of the valuable ornament for a devotee engaging in sadhana bhakti, remaining in a temple or a bhatta. Apart from this, we also heard from Gurudev that whenever we are not able to tolerate, at time we should inquire whether our chanting is going on nicely or not. After hearing this, I was convinced that maybe my bhajan is not nice. Therefore, Krishna is arranging these types of situations for me to learn how to tolerate. But what about cooperate? Long time I was just thinking deeply about the word cooperate. What type of cooperation will I have to extend? And towards whom? This question was always bothering me. Many nights I was crying because of not being able to understand the real meaning of cooperate. Finally, by the mercy of Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada, we got the answer. In an article written by Srila Prabhupada, he mentions, Ekaki amar nahi paye bolo harinam sankirtani. Srila Prabhupada writes in that article, you devotees, you should help me. You should cooperate with me so I can preach Krishna consciousness nicely all over the world. After going through this article, I came to know what exactly Gurudev means about cooperate. By Gurudev and Gopal's arrangement, we found Gurudev's diary of 1973. In one of the diary entries from October, he mentions seeing a picture of Srimad Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstasy out of love. Gurudev writes, "Oh Mahaprabhu, please shower your mercy on me so that I can develop love for Krishna and I may be able to distribute prema, ananda and santi all over the world." So now the question comes, whether I am really cooperating in my Gurudev's mission. If not, then what I am doing is simply non-cooperation. This type of non-cooperation with Gurudev will bring to many types of dangers, such as competitive mood and doing some type of activities which will never please Gurudev. So, then what will be my future? Gurudev picked me up from the hellish conditions of life. He wanted to give some taste by which I will never turn my face back. He spared so much of his spiritual blood for us with the hope that if at least one of his disciples can realize the goal of life, then his guruship will be successful. We have gone through Shastra and we can say that Gurudev has not totally departed or disappeared. Still he is with us. But are we really feeling the presence of Gurudev? If we can really feel his presence, then we'll never dare to do things which will not be appreciated by Gurudev. So, on this auspicious occasion, I am praying to Gurudev that he should chastise me, but should not throw me out from his association. I am really helpless. I need only mercy, and I will beg that mercy life after life, because without mercy, we cannot progress in our spiritual path at all. Gurudev is Antarjami. He knows our heart. Till now, we are still a very, very young child. Until now, we have not understood our responsibilities properly. So, we beg at the lotus feet of Gurudev to just take care of us. Jai Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
My pranams to Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu. I'm sorry he wasn't able to be with us live today, but he made that beautiful video. And I'd just like to offer a reflection or two before we go on to our next part of the program. Gour Maharaj used to tell us sometimes that when Srila Prabhupada came to Bhubaneswar in 1977 in February, that Prabhupada called him to his room, and Prabhupada pointed outside to all the devotees who were there. And Prabhupada told Gour Maharaj, he said, you should tolerate, cooperate. And that was something Gour Maharaj quite often commented on to us. And I was appreciating very much Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu's comments, because it's been a great difficulty for him. Being a temple president is not an easy thing, especially when you have a lot of people who are, you have foreigners and you have Deshi devotees, local devotees. They don't always understand each other. There's always politics. There's always some difficulties. And Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu managed to tolerate and cooperate. And I also appreciate very much his comment about how we can feel Gour Maharaj's presence through that cooperation with the Sankirtan movement. And if we're conscious of Gour Maharaj's presence, then we won't do any nonsense activities. I was very much appreciating that. So although he's not with us right now, I want to thank Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu very much for taking the time to give us such a wonderful offering. Now we'd like to turn to His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj. Just a little introduction to him. You may know him. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He's a well-known scholar. I think he has a PhD from Yale, as I recall. He's a well-known writer and speaker. And I didn't really know that Maharaj had much of a connection with our Gour Maharaj until a few years ago, when Naranjan Maharaj and Guru Prasad Maharaj and Devamrita Maharaj requested us to take them around in Jagannath Puri on some parikrama. And I was a little taken aback and very uncomfortable when they asked me to give all the talks. It just was strange. I'm a very young devotee. And so we did that for like a week. And then at the end of the program, they were all speaking. And then at that time, I could understand why they asked us to do that. And Devamrita, all three of them mentioned how Gour Maharaj had invited them to come to Bhubaneswar and spend time with him, but they all lamented they weren't able to do that. And so they thought, well, at least we can go and hear from some so-called disciple of his and some of the same kata. So Devamrita Maharaj is a very thoughtful person. He's always encouraged us very much. And I'm very grateful that he took time to make this video for us, just 8 minutes.
Om Jnana Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gour Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. I feel quite honored to be asked to speak something on the occasion of the Disappearance Day celebration of His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj. I jotted down a few thoughts because generally disappearance days are not the easiest occasion for me to speak. But then again, any chance to glorify an exalted devotee should be acted upon. I missed out on the Vapu Association of His Holiness. I was never present in the same region where he frequented. Before his departure, however,
I was blessed to be present in one of his classes given in the Mayapur temple. And all I can say is that this singular experience, I only heard one class. This singular experience was phenomenal. And then shortly thereafter, Krishna withdrew Maharaj's physical association. The sequence of events left me quite perplexed for some time. Why did I have this powerful experience? And then immediately after that, Maharaj left our physical presence. So I lacked the Bapu Sangha that so many of you experienced. My only recourse was Sangha through the Vani. For that precious facility of Vani Sangha, I'm grateful and indebted to his disciples who have worked so industriously to ensure that ISKCON never forgets the awesome contribution of Srila Gour Govinda Swami. World famous publications like the Sri Krishna Kathamrita magazine, now in email format as the Bindu, and books, exquisite books such as Mathura Meets Vrindavan, are an extraordinary boost to any devotee's life, and certainly to mine. In pondering the enormous ongoing contribution of His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj, I'd like to present that he added emphasis on Krishna in the current setup of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Renewed emphasis on understanding Krishna and loving Krishna. He did this from within Prabhupada's institution as a loyal member and leader. From within Prabhupada's institution, he took the institution higher. And he did this by simply emphasizing Krishna Katha and the science of loving Krishna, demonstrating with his life the state of being immersed in thoughts of Krishna, remembrances of Krishna, describing Krishna and inspiring others to come higher in their spiritual life. So I like to say that he renewed and revived the Krishna factor in Krishna's society. Sometimes in his speaking, in his preaching, he had to push, prod, and even startle us out of our routine, out of our complacency, out of our mechanicalness. For that mercy, we should be eternally indebted. From within the ocean of ISKCON, he was a bhakti volcano, mercifully erupting with higher realizations. By his life and teachings. He raised the standard. He raised the bar for bhakti immersion. In conclusion, I thank his dedicated disciples for their holding high the banner of his Vani, the Vani of His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj, so that as the years go by, our attachment for him intensifies. Our realization of his extraordinary contribution increases with each passing year. I thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity. My obeisances to you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So again, although he's not present with us live, I want to thank Devamrita Maharaj very much for taking the time to share his thoughts with us. It's a little startling for me in some ways that Guru Maharaj is such a powerful person that even devotees who had very little association, as Devamrita Maharaj mentioned, he only heard one lecture. But I know Devamrita Maharaj, some years ago, he was asking us for several Guru Maharaj's books, and he was writing back to me about the books with great appreciation and thoughtfulness. And not only that, but he started sharing those books with other devotees. So I'm very grateful to him for his encouragement and for sharing this right now. Okay. And now I'd like to turn to Parthasarathi Maharaj, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Parthasarathi Maharaj's preaching has been mainly in Africa, and he pioneered the tent programs there. He made thousands of devotees in South Africa. He's a very amazing devotee, amazing preacher, but he's also a very deep individual. He spends about 2 hours a day. Spends about 2 hours a day, every day, just offering prayers to different Vaishnavas before he begins his japa. And he generally chants japa, I don't know, between 8 to 12 hours a day when he's not preaching in that. He's a very, very deep, thoughtful person. And Parthasarathi Maharaj has also been a great encouragement for us over the years. He had, again, just a little association with Guru Maharaj, but it changed his life. So I'd like to turn to Parthasarathi Maharaj now, the nice video that he sent us. And please give him your ear.
Tomorrow, Vishnu Gadaya Krishna Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Gour Bachani Nevasesha Sanivadi Praskachati. Tomorrow, Vishnu Gadaya Krishna Srimad Shrimati Srila Govinda Mahajatinam. I've been asked, requested by Madhavananda Prabhu, my dear friend, to speak some words on Srila Govinda Maharaj. I feel very honored. Daily I pray to Srila Govinda Maharaj. He is my Siksha Guru. He was my god brother, but far more advanced than myself. I also repeat this prayer. Gopal Gadara Tadim Yakishina Go Govinda Dasikam Naram Dasaram Varam. These prayers to Srila Govinda Maharaj. As far as I can see, Srila Govinda Maharaj is, and I say is because he still exists, the most advanced, spiritually advanced disciple of Srila Prabhupada. There are many advanced disciples of Srila Prabhupada, many nice grand disciples, but I really believe that Srila Govinda Maharaj was in a different category, and this is clearly evident from his life, his realizations, his books, his behavior, and so forth. The main characteristic that enlivens me about Srila Govinda Maharaj is that although he was so spiritually advanced, and I understand actually he was on Baba Bhakti, actually I think he's a Jivan Mukta Mahapurush and an eternal associate of eternal associate of Prabhupada. And he associated although he was misunderstood, wasn't properly recognized, minimized. Still, he continued in Prabhupada's mission. And this is his main thing, the whole reason why I pray to him, because although so advanced and clearly out of our league, allowed, stayed within the ISKCON mission, although there were so many problems, as I said, misunderstood. But he continued to serve Prabhupada, develop his area in Orissa, and he traveled and tried to preach to the preachers. So this example is very wonderful. Of course, Rasik Vaishnava, but what can you say about Braja Bhakti? He told me, he gave me the example, preaching to the blind, selling glasses. That's right, selling glasses in the land of the blind. Or he also wrote, trying to explain Braja Bhakti is like giving a frog ghee. So, as our society matures, we begin to realize his position. And of course, I don't mean to minimize the position of other God brothers and God sisters. They're also very nice, very advanced. And I think our society will become more healthy when we realize how Srila Govinda Maharaj's unique position. And we follow his example. In other words, we stay within the preaching mission of Prabhupada, although there are faults, although GBC may make errors or whatever, still we have an obligation, a duty to stay. And if we see faults, then within the mission, try to rectify them and do it according to our realization. Govinda Maharaj was very powerful. He could say things about the jiva. We are not so powerful. We don't have that credibility. So we just peacefully preach and we pray. Lord Chaitanya prayed. Krishna's Kaviraj says that Shri Rupa Hridaya Shakti Sancharila, the Lord Chaitanya entered the heart of Rupa Goswami, Sarvashakti, and revealed to him Sarvasastra, the conclusion of all scriptures. So we pray that our God brothers, God sisters, and members of ISKCON become endowed with proper siddhanta, proper knowledge, and respect. Learn how to respect. It's the important thing. Learn how to respect other Vaishnavas, whether they're in ISKCON or whether outside ISKCON, whether they're in some other sampradaya. We have to learn how to respect, have affection. This is one of the characteristics of Madhyam Bhakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Madhyam Bhakti. He sees other Vaishnavas as Buddhi worship. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described this in chapter 8 of Jayavadama. So we have to learn how to respect the Vaishnavas. They may have different opinions. It's all right. They will serve according to their realizations. But of course, Srila Govinda Maharaj was in a different category, and he had that power and that potency to speak out, which he did. So we honor him for that, and for his allegiance to Prabhupada's personal preaching mission. Srila Govinda Maharaj ki jai. Go Premanandi.
Wow. So again, I'd like to thank Parthasarathi Maharaj, although he wasn't online with us, but he shared this video. Guru Maharaj used to speak sometimes about the Sat Prema Hridaya Darpana, and how Krishna, if he wants to see himself, he can only be seen in the heart of love of the devotee. So I think in a similar way that we can meet our Guru Maharaj to the hearts of many different Vaishnavas, and what we'll find there will always be a little bit different, because the heart of the Vaishnavas is all a little different. I'd like to now ask one of my god uncles, is also an old friend, His Holiness Bhagavat Maharaj, B.V. Bhagavat Maharaj, if he could say something. Let me just say a few words of introduction to Bhagavat Maharaj. Many of you may already know him. If you don't, you should find out about him. He's a wonderful preacher. And he goes way, way back. He's a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he traveled in India some with Prabhupada. Prabhupada told him to stay here in Bhubaneswar with our Guru Maharaj and be a co-president, co-temple president. I won't say more about that. This Maharaj may want to say more things in that regard. But I will all just also add that I had the good fortune to be with Guru Maharaj on a few occasions, once in Atlanta, Georgia, and another occasion in Florida, in Alachua, when he met with Bhagavat Maharaj. And I could see it was a meeting of two hearts, a meeting of two good friends. Guru Maharaj considered him very close and loving. And thank you so much, Maharaj. I very much appreciate you with us today. Let's see here. So please share something with us, Maharaj.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Militan Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stavitan Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamaya Dadanti Swapadanti. First of all, I'd like to offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Diksha and Shiksha Guru, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Satala Satasi Srimad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Then unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Satala Satasi Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And then offer my most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my first Shiksha Guru, my dear Priya Bandhu, a bosom friend, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Satara Satasi Srimad Srila Gour Govinda Goswami Maharaj. And I want to offer my obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are present here today. My Dandavat pranams to one and all. So it is a great honor for me. Thank you so much, Madhavananda, for taking so much trouble to organize this preaching program so that we could all share the glories of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj with each other on this 25th anniversary of his disappearance, which, you know, Srila Prabhupada used to say, and all the acharyas in our Gaudiya Vaishnava.
Haribol. Di kene di Zoom ya ni ada kene. Di Zoom ya ni ada glorifikasi.
Mute her, please. Okay. So, all the acharyas in our line they talk about how both the appearance and disappearance days are causes for celebration on some level. And it certainly doesn't feel like that sometimes to us, those who are very close to and had dear and intimate relationships. And certainly for me, when I heard that Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj was leaving, or that he had left, it was very heartbreaking for me. So he was a Vaikuntha man from the beginning. I remember Srila praying at one point that he was a pure devotee from birth. We saw that he was born into a special line. Srila Prabhupada used to talk about a special birth, how he was very fortunate. Prabhupada would say how he was very fortunate to take a special birth in a family of great exalted Vaishnavas. His father was in a Gaudiya Vaishnav Parivar line, and how Srila Saraswati Thakur also was born into a great Vaishnav family. And so Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, the same. He was born into a great Vaishnav family. His parents were both involved in the Kirtan movement. They're connected to the temple that was in Jagannathpur, the Krishna temple that was there, Gopal Jew, that was very dear to Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. And they were initiated into the lineage from Raghuనంdan Thakur and Shamananda. So they were all, he was born into a great Vaishnav family. He talked about how he heard Srimad Bhagavatam every day of his life until he was very until he left there. He heard it in the village. His father used to recite it every day, the Jagannath Bhagavat. And so he had heard Srimad Bhagavatam daily as a youth, and it had a profound effect on him. He had a great attachment to Krishna. This is a special birth, being born to Vaishnavas who do the kirtans of Narottam Das Thakur and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis. This is not an ordinary birth. This is the birth of a pure devotee. This is a birth of a very greatly advanced devotee. So we can see right from the beginning, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj had a very auspicious birth. He had a very auspicious upbringing, and that was just fitting for someone who was such a great soul as himself. And we see that Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj was very dedicated to both Gour and Gopal, which is the name that he took when he left his family, go in search of his initiating guru. He was born Brajabandhu, but he took the name Gour Gopal because he said he was in search of a guru who would give him Gour and Gopal. And he found Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and there he was able to dedicate himself and his entire life to Srila Prabhupada. He said as soon as he read the article in the Back to Godhead about Srila Prabhupada talking about Lord Chaitanya and about Krishna, he understood that, yes, this is my guru. This is the person who is my guru. And he said later that was confirmed when he got into the room and was talking with Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada told him, I will give you sannyas and you will go back to Orissa and you will make your own men. And he understood this is guru, because guru is the external manifestation of Paramatma. And this was in my heart that I wanted to take sannyas and that I wanted to preach the mission in Orissa. And he knew that. He knew that. Then I understood, again, further confirmation that this is my Guru Maharaj. This is my Guru Maharaj. He knows my heart. He's the external manifestation of Paramatma. Now I am ready to completely surrender at the lotus feet of my Guru Maharaj. And from the beginning, he was dedicated, performing this intimate service for Srila Prabhupada, translating all of his books into Hindi and then Oriya and Bengali. He was a brilliant scholar who knew 5 languages, and he was able to preach the mission of Mahaprabhu in all of those languages with great talent. And he attracted so many people all over the world. Why? Because he did something that Srila Prabhupada repeatedly said. I was just reading an article today, a conversation, not an article. In the conversation, the devotee was praising Srila Prabhupada. Often we would do that. We would glorify Srila Prabhupada and tell him how glorious he was, what a great personality he was. And they were glorifying him and saying, we think that you are more than Paramahansa. And he said, no, I am not. I am not even a devotee. I'm lower than you. I'm lower than the lowest. And then Srila Prabhupada was saying, my only qualification is that I took the order of my Guru Maharaj and I followed it against all odds, against all obstacles, no matter how difficult it was. I continued to devote myself to executing the order of my Guru Maharaj. And because I surrendered at the feet of my Guru and tried to fulfill the order which he gave me, and because I taught the message that he gave me the way he gave it to me, I didn't change anything. Prabhupada used to say over and over again, I didn't change the message. I just delivered the message as it is. As my Guru Maharaj gave it to me, I delivered it. So Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj exemplified all of these qualities of Srila Prabhupada. He stayed there in that mud hut for his entire devotional life. He sacrificed everything. He lived in conditions that no one else could live in. He was completely and totally devoted to the order of his Guru Maharaj to build that temple there, to make sure that that temple was constructed and that it fulfilled the orders of Srila Prabhupada. He was totally dedicated to translating those books and translating them as accurately as possible. He went through so many different difficulties trying to make sure that very carefully the message that Srila Prabhupada was giving in his books in English, that Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj was repeating that message in the Orisan language as Srila Prabhupada gave it to him. So he followed in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps in that he took a very auspicious birth. He grew up in Vaishnava association. He sought out a pure devotee guru. He surrendered to that guru and he fulfilled the order of the guru against all obstacles and difficulties. And he delivered the message of the guru as the guru gave it to him. And this, every single qualification that ornamented Srila Prabhupada's transcendental personality, ornamented the transcendental personality of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. And this is why he was such an exalted devotee, such an extraordinary personality. So we are very fortunate today that we can hear about the glories of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. He also did something very special. With all due deference to Devamrita Swami, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj helped us to understand not just Krishna, but Krishna's Shakti, his eternal consort, Srimati Radhika. Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj introduced us to the understanding that it was Radhika that is the supreme, that Radhika was the greatest personality, and that that Mahaprabhu came to find the mood of Radhika. It was Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj who took those parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada gave us and cast a light on them and brilliantly showed us with great devotion and great transcendental knowledge in a very scholarly manner how Srimati Radhika was the most important personality. He made a great contribution to the ISKCON movement by helping us to understand the importance of Srimati Radhika by quoting those verses and those purports and those commentaries that Srila Prabhupada left us, explaining about those things and then expanding upon that with his own transcendental realization and singing, Kotai go prema moi, Radhe Radhe, Kotai go prema moi, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe go jai, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe go jai, Radhe Radhe, and shouting very loudly, Krishna is going here, to this place, to Govardhan, to Vamshivat and Keshigat. He's going everywhere. Oh Radhe, please come and show me your transcendental form, or I will lose my life. My life air will be gone. In this way, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj used to preach about the glories of Srimati Radhika and show us how Krishna was hankering for the association of Srimati Radhika, that he was going to lose his life air without the association of Srimati Radhika. This special gift was one of the great things that Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj gave us, this special information, this special knowledge, taking all of that information from Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada gave us, and then putting it out there in the open, casting a bright light on it, bright like the sun, with his transcendental effulgence and his transcendental knowledge, and brilliantly shining forth. Radhe, 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 here, this is the goal. This is what we're looking for. This is what Krishna is looking for. This is what we want. We want to be the servants of Srimati Radhika. So we are so fortunate that we had the opportunity to associate intimately with such an exalted personality who gave us such jewels and gifts that we could not understand. I remember how deeply he saw into everything. In that lecture in the book, Mathura Meets Vrindavan, he's talking about that verse about Jamadagni becoming one of the 7 stars in the Saptarishis. And he says, you think this verse is only about stars, but you don't know that every verse in the Bhagavatam is about Madhurya Ras, about Krishna's relationship with Srimati Radhika. And then he takes the whole lecture and he comes to explain what the meaning of that is. How fortunate we were. How fortunate we were that we had such an exalted devotee who could see between the lines and into the deep meaning of every little verse in the Bhagavatam and all of the different aspects of the verse, every word, and measure it and explain it in great detail, like the previous acharyas, like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Every vowel, he was able to go into it in great depth because of both his knowledge of language and his transcendental knowledge, which was, of course, the most important. So I cannot begin to fortunate and how lucky I was to have at such a young age the association of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj. I was only 26. I was a child. I was a boy. But having that association with him, living with him in the mud hut, having him read to me from Hari Bhakti Vilas, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, from Gaur Ganadesha Dipika, Radhakrishna Ganadesha Dipika, and all these different scriptures, and explaining them to me in English after reading them to me in the original languages, and helping me to understand the depth of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. My fortune is unlimited by his association. So on this day, I want to offer my most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my Shiksha Guru, my dear Priya Bandhu, my close, dear friend. I miss you so much. Thank you for all your mercy. Thank you for all your love. I pray that I could even become even one speck of dust on your lotus feet. Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Bhagavat Maharaj, thank you very much for showing us a very intimate part of your heart. And it's very, very wonderful. I'm really touched that you were speaking about from Mathura meets Vrindavan and how Nanda Maharaj is Premanda. He's blind because of Prem. And although Uddhava is coming and trying to give him the light of Gyan, it doesn't work because he doesn't work with him. Thank you very much for sharing some of your experiences. And for those of you who don't know Bhagavat Maharaj so well, he's on Facebook. He gives regular classes. He's in Dallas right now, enjoying the warm weather, I've heard.
I'm in
Sorry? Houston. And he also, if you want to read some of his memories of our Guru Maharaj, Maharaj allowed us to interview him some years back, and we printed those memories in the book, When Good Fortune Arises. So thank you so much for being with us today, Maharaj. It really means a lot to me. I know it's very late where you're at. Thank you.
I said, thank you for the opportunity. I wouldn't have missed it. And I'm going to ask to beg your pardon because it's 11 p.m. now. And
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So now we have another very special devotee that we want to ask to speak something. It's an old dear friend, Raghava Pandit Prabhu, and it's also very late for him. So I don't want to spend too much time speaking about him, but I just want to say a few words. Raghava joined at a very young age. He's a very beautiful, handsome person. He's still beautiful and handsome. He's just got a few more gray hairs now. But I'm staying right now in the Bhuvaneshwar Temple guest house. We'll put these pictures up behind us. And I'm just a couple rooms away from where Raghava used to do his work. And he was the first person to start transcribing and making books of Guru Maharaj. And he made 4 or 5 different books, including the most famous, Embankment of Separation. And I saw his very intimate relationship with Guru Maharaj. And I saw how he was ready to do anything for Guru Maharaj. He was going to a place we know as hell. The other word for it is Singapore. And there he was going out and collecting and staying in a terrible, terrible place for the temple. And he contributed so much to this temple. And I think also you helped, you and Gokul, I think you paid for Guru Maharaj's car. Is that right, Raghava?
Yeah.
The car is still here today. They're looking at it. They have like a special little like temple they made just for that car. So when I'm looking at that, I was remembering you and all the devotees here. Thank you so much for being with us today, Prabhuji. I'll stop. Please share a few words with us about Guru Maharaj.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, it's a real honor to be here and have an opportunity to share, a couple of thoughts and to hear about our Guru Maharaj. Panchakalpatrubhisya kripasinubhya vistapatitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunamilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Gour Govinda Goswami Niti Namine. Before I start, I would like to give my Puspanjali to and Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, and also to the lotus feet of my beloved Shiksha Gurudev Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and my equal Sastanga Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, and also at the lotus feet of Srila Bhakti Pragyana Keshav Goswami Maharaj, whose Vyasa Puja, his appearance day, we're celebrating today or perhaps tomorrow. It's a very interesting connection and very important connection with our Srila Prabhupada. And so I want to honor those great personalities who have paved the way for us to come into contact with the beautiful path of that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made available for us through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And that's how I got to know all of you as well. I don't know if we would have met in any other circumstances other than the circumstances that we were given. So I'm extremely grateful for that. On this day, and I wrote down a couple of notes. It's a short period of time that we're trying to jam in as much as we can for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas, for the pleasure of my Gurudev, for the pleasure of our Guru Parampara. And my Dandavat pranams also to you, Bhagavat Maharaj. Thank you so much for being here, and to all the devotees that are here, Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, and to Madhavananda Prabhu and others for making this available and making this possible. I know how stressful it can be to organize online events, etc., and so forth. So, but I wanted to just think on this, day of the disappearance of our, dear Srila Gurudev, who is the Gaura Priyajana, who is a very dear devotee of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and who has given up this material existence to join his beloved Gopal in his seva. And it gives us an opportunity to remember, to speak about, and to hear about his wonderful qualities, his legacy, his achievements, his qualities, his characteristics and ornaments, which is really for our purification, for our benefit, that we should hear about and speak about the wonderful Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are our life and soul. I saw the Madhukar Prabhu shared a wonderful verse from one of the songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Vaishnavare Paradhuli, Tahe Mora Snana Keli, Tarpan Mora Vaishnavare Nam, that my bath is in the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, and my satiation, my fulfillment is in the names of the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are Punya Sloka. They are as good as, to speak about the Vaishnavas is as good as speaking about Krishna. The name of the Vaishnavas are as good as the name of Krishna. So it's a very unique opportunity that we're given. We're aspiring Vaishnavas, we're devotees, we're trying our best to come up to the levels that are being described and prescribed for us by our Guru Varga. And so we are very fortunate. Like, how many people have this kind of opportunity in this world? People are confused, people are frustrated, people are desperate, people are ignorant, people are in illusion, and here we are being welcomed into this wonderful movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that always fills my heart with immense gratitude and appreciation. That is not a given. That is not a given. There's nothing that we did. This is all given to us. It's all made available to us. And so I always wonder, and I'm always surprised in how amazing it is to be given such an opportunity. So I'm very grateful for that. On this day, and I think the video that Madhavananda shared with us, that the Guru is always present, or I forget the exact title, or there wasn't the Greek for Sadhu Sangha, I forget, sorry, I'm mixing it up now. But in any case, they're both wonderful topics. But on the disappearance day of our Guru Maharaj's Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj, he would always say that he could never utter the Nitya Lila. He could never say that his Gurudev had actually departed and gone away and disappeared. He says, because my Gurudev is always here. He's always in my vision. I can never say Nitya Lila, because that is not fact. For him, he's seeing his Gurudev how his Gurudev, and we should also adopt that same mood, how our Gurudev is still here to teach us, myself and all others, in the path of bhakti, and to inspire us that he is right here among us. So this is not some like concept, but this is really a vision that we must develop, that we must adopt, that we must learn from our Guru Varga. How have they continued to serve their Guru Varga in their, you know, sort of mortal absence, right? So this is a great inspiration. So we have to adopt this mood, how he's still nourishing us, his sons, his daughters, his disciples, and not only his direct disciples, but he is still nourishing any Vaishnava, anyone who's crying in from the core of their hearts, to crying out to Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, to our Guru Varga for guidance, for inspiration, for bhakti support. And he is there for them. He will appear before them. And we're getting messages almost daily from people that are hearing about Guru Maharaj for the first time ever. They're young devotees or some older devotees. And they're asking about Guru Maharaj and where can I find more information? And it's amazing. It's amazing the impact, like 25 years after the disappearance of our Guru Maharaj from our mortal vision, that people are still finding so much inspiration. And where has he been? And how come we don't know about him? And so it's a really wonderful effect that the devotee of Krishna has. So I was just going to say that this is not only true inside of ISKCON, of course, which is the main institution, or the institution where our Srila Gurudev served his Gurudev, but this is also true outside of the boundaries of the ISKCON society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Like in so many temples, in so many mats all over the world, our Gurudev is being glorified on his appearance day and his disappearance day. And this, whatever opinion you may have about all these things, but this to me is like wonderful, to see our Gurudev being glorified by so many devotees that have no direct connection with him, but just are in awe of his character, of his devotion, his Guru Nishtha. They are, finding inspiration from his teachings, from his lectures, his books, his tapes, his videos, like whomever is helping to distribute and to continue the distribution and the availability of his shiksha, of his life teachings is our friend, no matter what, I don't care even what clothes you wear or what, whatever you like, this to me is the only thing. Like Madhukar Prabhu this morning was saying something very, very beautiful, that even a dog that has served our Gurudev or has been in the association is worthy of our respect. What to speak of those who have with intention and with surrender, tried their best to render some service to the lotus feet of our Gurudev. They are our heart and soul. This is very, very important. I'm trying to cultivate this mood in my own heart, to always see the essence of what the devotees are trying to do in order to distribute our Gurudev's teachings, to uphold his legacy and with dignity and prestige, etc. This is very wonderful. And I want to thank also Bhagavad Maharaj for sharing so much today, but also any day when Maharaj has an opportunity to speak. It fills my heart with joy when he mentions even a line or a paragraph or whatever you give him. He will fill it up with glories of the Vaishnavas, including our Gurudev. It always fills my heart with so much joy. You have no idea. And also seeing the other devotees like Devamrita Maharaj and I forget a Maharaj from South Africa, like so much love, Parthasarathi Maharaj, so much love and devotion and respect and adoration and just, it's really wonderful to see. It fills my heart with joy. Like anyone who's a friend of my Gurudev is my friend, So this is very wonderful. I just want to, and the reason why that's possible, I find, is that Gurudev finds a way to those who are simple-hearted, right? I always remember this as a key slogan. I should have this a big tattoo on my somewhere that says simplicity is Vaishnavism, because Gurudev would always drive this point home so strongly, like uncomplicate yourself. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. Those who are simple are natural Vaishnavas. This is what I'm trying to somehow cultivate in my complicated, ego mind, that is completely entangled in the rights and wrongs of this world and all of that, to just simply be a Vaishnava or try to follow the teachings of our Guru Varga, and simply with love in our heart, give praise to the Vaishnavas, worship Gour Nityananda, Radha Krishna and Vrindavan, and, chant Harinam, take Harinam, serve Harinam, and try to keep my life simple. It's not up to me to solve all the problems of the world, of the GBC, of this thing, of that thing. Like, it's not my responsibility to solve all these problems. So why would I go there and try to somehow or other, become the savior of the story? That's not my job. My job, I think, I feel, I hope I got this right, is to just, cultivate simplicity in my heart and become a Vaishnav, maybe in some future life. I'm hopeful. I don't know. My Gurudev is so powerful. That's my only hope. I have no hope based on my own strengths or my own abilities, but I know my Gurudev is very powerful. He's a magician. And he comes in a line of magicians, by the way. If I may, I don't know how many minutes I have left, but I'd like to share a short story about how I met Srila Gurudev, because somehow independent me, I've been to India, I spent some time at the VIHE, and I got some inspiration about Krishna Bhakti and Krishna consciousness. I thought it was wonderful. When I came back to Holland, my landlord had given up my apartment, so I had to somehow, Krishna forced me to move into the temple, which was then closing down in Amsterdam. So he forced me all the way in the rural area of Rotterdam. There's no way for me to escape as a young man, trying to get a little fix of whatever sense gratification. So here I am stuck in the middle of Rotterdam, not a bad place to be stuck. And I was invited, had to whatever, enroll into the Bhakta program, which was then being led by Maitreya Rishi, who later became Mahesh Pandit. So I'm always indebted to him and I'm very grateful to him. And I've let him know also recently, when he just called me on the phone, all completely off guard. And he, as part of our Bhakta program, he says, okay, everyone, pack your bags. Today we are going to see the Padayatris who are visiting us from the UK, I think. This is 1991. And there's a sannyasi there that we must hear from. So we all went, not knowing what to expect. And that's when I heard and saw Guru Maharaj for the first time. And he was speaking about the mercy and the power of Lord Nityananda, and how we should beg and pray for the mercy of Lord Nityananda if we want to truly be connected with a Satguru. And so, being young and in this Bhakta program and looking for what are my steps for my development, like the idea of Guru Padasroy, of accepting a guru, becomes viable, becomes an important next step. Otherwise, we're just hanging around the devotees a little bit and take some Mahaprasadam, and you can continue this for a very long time. But I felt like in order to make that next step, I needed to put that thing, to sort of open my heart to finding that person who could guide me. And so I saw Gurudev, whom then I, thought, wow, he's different than what I'm used to seeing. Most of the sannyasis, most of the preachers that come through, there's a certain style, there's a certain walk, there's a certain color, and everything was different about him. But supremely joyful and extremely, knowledgeable and
That's what I'm used to doing with the Chinese.
Grave, So I was very impressed. And the next day, I think he visited Radha Desh temple. So again, I was taking notes, like my life depended on it. And I later came to realize that my life did depend on it. But so then after some time, I decided to go to India quite independently. And I went to the VIHE courses in Vrindavan for Kartik. And then later on, I moved to Mayapur. And I was having a samosa one night, sounds very interesting, at the restaurant. And this devotee comes sit next to me. He said, man, I just been to a really nice darshan. I said, well, who was it? He said, Govinda Maharaj. He's on the 5th floor, or I forget the floor, room number 80 or 81, right? In the conch building or some building. And you should come, it's amazing. I said, oh yeah, I met him. So anyway, I go the next evening, and I think 3 or 4 nights in a row, I go there, I'm totally hooked. I knew in my heart, he's my guru. So at the last, I had some questions in my mind, and the last darshan before Gurudev was going to go back to Orissa, to Bhubaneswar, I had some questions, and I thought I'll wait until his darshan, the talk is over at night. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some 10 or 15, maximum 15 devotees were in his room. And I thought I'll wait and then I'll ask. I'm a bit shy. But while I'm sitting there, you know, thinking about my questions, he's answering these questions. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty far out. And then at the end of his darshan, he looks me right in the eye and he says, so are all questions answered? I was like, Haribol, you know, like, yes. So I was like, whoa, I waited till everyone left the room and I paid my full Dandavat pranams. I tried, I mean, at least externally. I'm not trying to make this into, you know, like my story. But I asked him to accept me as a disciple. And he says, well, he says, just as a guru should scrutinize the disciple for a period of time, similarly, disciples should also scrutinize guru before you can enter this relationship. So you should come to Bhubaneswar and hear, because unless you're here, how can you develop Shraddha? So he can help you. And he was pointing at my Gokul Das, god brother to be. And so he helped me out with ticket and whatever arrangements to get on a train. It was about 10 of us maybe. And we all happily went to Bhubaneswar, and kind of the rest is kind of history. I stayed there for some time, went back to Holland. And there's more to the story. There's so many stories to tell. But eventually I ended up receiving Harinam and Diksha in 92 and 93 respectively, I think. One of the most beautiful things that I remember, or intimate moments, is, there are many, there are so many, but one of them was traveling in Europe, in the US, in Australia. But I do remember in the US when we were visiting New Vrindavan. And, you know, it's always like a very tricky sort of area, like this New Vrindavan project, you know, has had its ups and downs. And Gurudev is there and meeting so many people that have their stories and their history and backgrounds. And Gurudev is just so compassionate and so kind and so understanding and so wanting to help and nourish. And he's staying in a cabin in one of the cottages on the property. And in the evening, there's darshan for, it's not like a big classroom or anything like that in the morning, but this is evening times. It's quite very intimate. And so I'm like, you know, Guru Maharaj is speaking about the most confidential topics of, you know, Lord Chaitanya, why he stayed in Jagannath Puri, and he's speaking Jagannath Mahabhava Prakash, I think. And he's speaking all these wonderful topics that later ended up in the book called The Embankment of Separation, which was a compilation of several occasions where he spoke the same lecture, but sometimes details are left out or added, but they're all part of his pravachan. So yeah, those are some of my dearest moments that I hold very dear. And on a day like this, I just beg again and again at the lotus feet of my dear Gurudev to please forgive me millions and millions of times for all my offenses, for all my shortcomings, for all the bad qualities. Gurudev, I love you. I know you love me. I pray and pray and pray and pray that you don't give up on me. I'm so grateful for your continued nourishment and looking after me through so many wonderful Vaishnavas, my godbrothers and friends, sisters, and in so many ways. So I'm always grateful. So thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers for allowing me to speak a little bit. Please forgive any shortcomings or offenses. This all on me. If anything good came out, this all Gurudev's glory. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Panchakalpatrubhisya Kripa Sindhabhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raghav. I really appreciate it. I know you're staying up late and he has to get up early the next morning. For those of you who don't know, he has a what do you call it? I don't know, a sanctuary for animals, for horses and dogs and cows and so many different personalities there in Connecticut. And he's got to get up early in the morning and take care of all of them. I hadn't heard.
Well, I don't have it. I don't own it. I get to hang out here with the animals.
Right. That's what we do with his bodies, right? We also do.
Yeah.
So thank you very. I hadn't heard this story before. How you came to Gour Maharaj and the Padayatra and Mahesh Pandit and all that. Another thing I really liked was the story about how Gour Maharaj told Gokul to make arrangements for you, and it reminded me. I don't want to tell my story, but just a couple quick things. On one occasion, Guru Maharaj told Gokul, you make arrangements for Madhavananda to go to Singapore. And so that's when we went. We were doing paintings there. And then when Guru Maharaj came to Bali, everybody left to go to Bali and left me alone because I didn't have money. And like a day after, Gokul phones me up and he said, Guru Maharaj told me to call you. Guru Maharaj said that I should bring you to Bali. So that's what a sweet relationship Gokul has with Guru Maharaj.
I know. He's like a transcendental mediator, like the middleman.
Thank you very much for sharing that, my dear brother. So now we have our next speaker, very special personality, and that's our dear God sister Anuradha. She deserves one of those badges. I don't know, like what do you call it, the Purple Heart at least, because she raised single-handedly 6 children, and not just any kind of children, but they were Australian children. Double trouble. And she did that in this most conservative place in the whole world, in Orissa, and at the same time serving Guru Maharaj. And I don't even think she lost her sanity. I don't know how that worked. Anybody else would go completely crazy. And she's so dedicated to Guru Maharaj. Thank you for being with us, Anuradha.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can everybody hear me? Is it going okay? Yes. I'm sorry. This is my very first experience with a Zoom meeting, and it's really touching. I'm just overwhelmed to just see everybody. And I thank you, sincerely for arranging this and for everybody to be there. Please be patient with me because I haven't done this before. So I've actually written something. So I'll try and read it out. It's so heart-churning, always glorifying Gurudev on his disappearance day. So please bear with me. It is 25 years since our beloved Gurudev so suddenly left this world. It has been stated and shown that he was a Vaishnava from birth. He never engaged in sinful activities or as an Avaishnava in his entire life. And astrologers said that he came directly from the Lord's abode, a Nityasiddha devotee. These things have been well researched and documented. Srila Prabhupada affectionately called him my child. Srila Gour Govinda Swami perfectly represented the teachings of our Guru Parampara, expertly establishing Tattva Siddhanta according to our Gaudiya Acharyas, and therefore he's a great Mahajan, a Tattva Acharya. The moment we heard that our Gurudev had left this world was a great shock for us. It wasn't just the tragic news that now we no longer will have the personal association of our loving Father and Guide, no longer witness his ecstasy after Srimad Bhagavatam classes, or hear his belly laughter about the foolishness of material life. It was something far worse than that. On the one hand, we were happy that surely now he's again reunited with Sri Sri Radhesham in their eternal Leela. But on the other, it appeared to be a confirmation of Gurudev's hurting heart. For us disciples, that has been the hardest issue to cope and deal with. Gurudev didn't die of a disease or an accident. He voluntarily chose to leave this world. The events leading up to his departure are truly amazing and mysterious. As a child, he had witnessed his grandfather exactly doing this, making a decision to go back to the Lord's Nitya Leela, fixing a time and day, and peacefully departing in perfect Krishna consciousness. This is a very rare phenomenon, practically unheard of in this day and age. Now devotees in Mayapur had witnessed this. My meditation today is on the tenderness of a pure Vaishnava's heart. Gurudev was so learned, a determined and powerful leader, a heroic fighter for truth, very renowned sannyasi, totally committed to Srila Prabhupada's service. Srila Prabhupada's instructions to him were his life. He was so humble, caring, loving, very attentive in training his disciples personally. He was never once influenced by the 3 modes of nature, definitely not suffering from any anarthas, never victim to imperfect senses, cheating or being cheated. His heart filled to the brim with Krishna prema. However, at times, his heart hurt. Recently, disciples in a discussion yet again tried to understand Gurudev's sudden disappearance. Was it due to the increasing pain he described to us after each GBC meeting? If you listen to an arrival lecture he gave on the 5th of March, 1995 in Bhubaneswar, after the GBC meetings, you'll hear how he expressed such pain. At that time, in regards to the Jiva issue, philosophical decisions were being made by the GBC according to majority votes, rather than by carefully studying Srila Prabhupada's books and the teachings of our predecessor acharyas. Gurudev was very worried. He had heard that it was being said that Govinda Swami is against the GBC. He said there was a sword hanging over his head. His heart hurt. And this was practically impossible for us disciples to deal with. Or was it due to the misbehavior of some disciples, or simply Krishna's will? It is not possible to know the heart of a pure Vaishnava. Only he can choose to reveal himself to a deserving surrendered soul. Only a month later, after this arrival lecture, in the beginning of April 1995 in Bhubaneswar, a godbrother expressed some doubt about Gurudev's position. Maybe he could fall down like so many others before. Gurudev was so upset. His heart hurt. He even wanted to reject this disciple. But we managed to placate Gurudev and beg forgiveness, knowing full well that we're all in fact unqualified disciples, capable of vomiting and passing stool on our Father's lap. At the time, however, my heart went out to Gurudev, and I spontaneously wrote a letter to him. I expressed how I was so sorry that he had to deal with renegade disciples like us, that he actually deserved to have the association of illustrious pure devotees as depicted, for example, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaivadharma. I didn't expect a reply. I just knew his heart was hurting. However, a few days later, Gurudev gave me a letter through his servant, dated on the 5th of April 1995. In there, amongst other things, he said, "Thank you for your letter handed to me here in Bhubaneswar, dated on the 2nd of the 4th, 1995. I've read your letter carefully and noted the contents. I'm very happy to have your letter and you set up an example." So this reply confirmed to me that somehow or other I was on the right track. A devotee's heart is very tender. They may be transcendental to this nasty material world, but their heart can pain. For me, this somewhat connects with what would be his last diary entry only a year later on Friday, the 8th, February 1996. He wrote, "Prabhu Gopal, please give mercy. Make Krishna Prema and Bhakti available to this servant. Please make available a proper group of devotees, friends, comrades, and associates. Allow this servant to be successful in the service of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga." And 25 years later, we still ponder on his sudden disappearance. It happened. It's in the past. What did we learn? When Krishna suddenly disappeared during the Rasa dance, we read the following statement in Kavi Kanapura's Ananda Brindavan Champu. Krishna spoke in a tricky way with the gopis in order to solve a difficult problem. He wanted to create unity among the opposing parties of Radha and Chandravali so that everyone could fully taste the rasa. Superficially, he seemed indifferent, but within, he relished the essence of sweetness. Blinded by their attachment, the gopis only took the outer meaning. They could not perceive the hidden reality of his words. And in the next chapter, in the battle of love, the gopis, being completely endowed with prema, served as wish-fulfilling gems satisfying Krishna's every desire for rasa, being free from anger and full of wonderful qualities, the selfless gopis united in friendship. And then a little further, the purity of the gopis' love had been colored by the pride of love, which is unfavorable for the growth of bliss. Krishna instantly created a situation of pain in separation, which acted as a solvent to remove the false color. It is my fervent belief, whatever a pure devotee does is for the pleasure of Krishna and also his way to show mercy to the conditioned souls. May this pain of separation from our beloved Gurudev unite us in friendship so that we may all progress happily on the path of pure devotional service. Let us learn to deal carefully with the tender hearts of pure devotees. Dear Gurudev, please forgive me. I realize I'm the most puffed up and such a proud devotee. Please remove my pride and make me qualified for your service. Let this pain of separation increase and be the means to purify me. Your lowly crow, Anuradha Devi Dasi. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Oh.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Anuradha. I really, really appreciate it. Anuradha is in Vrindavan now, and she's there with our next speaker, who I'll introduce in a moment. I just want to offer a little reflection or two on what you said. Thank you so much for speaking about this letter that Guru Maharaj wrote back to you. Very short letter, but what I see in that is that as disciples or aspiring disciples, as everyone's been saying, we should want to be empathetic with Gurudev. We should try to understand his pains and make those pains our own. I was also very much appreciating the very sweet excerpts you read from Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Thank you for that. That's Guru Maharaj, I think, would like that very much. And I was also really struck me your comment you made about how may the pain of separation unite all of us together. That's something that we have in common. The gopis are united not just because they all live in the same place, but because they have the same pain in their heart. They have the same feelings in their heart. And that's what will unite us. So thank you so much for such a deep offering and sharing us with this. I really appreciate that. So let me go on to our next speaker now. The very special personality who I don't think I've seen since about 1996. That's Vaijayanti Mala. I don't know if you even remember me, but I interviewed you.
Yes, I remember you.
We have another Australian here also.
We are mates.
Old friend.
So for those of you who don't know, Vaijayanti Mala has a very, very special connection with our revered spiritual master. I don't know what you want to tell today. That's for you.
Yeah.
But she was there when Guru Maharaj left his body. She was speaking with him and asking some questions from him. And I don't want to limit you to speak about that, whatever you'd like to talk about. I just want to thank you from the core of my heart for coming here with us today. For those of you who don't know about Jayanti Mala, she's been living in Vrindavan as a sadhvi. She's a disciple of the exalted Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. And she's a very, very thoughtful, deep person. I'm just so delighted. So delighted.
Thank you. Thank you. It's too kind. I don't know what to do with that.
Please share something with us. Suswagatam.
Okay. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishna Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vanchakalpa Turubhyastra Kripa Sindhubhye Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I offer my unlimited Dandavat Pranam to my beloved Gurudev Nityalila Pravishtaram Vishnupad Shishima Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, by whose mercy I've really come to appreciate Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj so much. And just yesterday, I found the paper that I'd written a few days after Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj left this world. I'd written my notes, and it was so moving. And then sitting next to Anuradha and seeing her control her tears has made me sort of, it entered my heart, the depth of her emotion. So don't mind. I felt that while my nature is actually more to talk the way Shripad Bhagavat Maharaj, that was amazing, you know, to discuss the Tattva Siddhanta of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj and what he gave. Words can't describe, you know, this is such a beautiful glorification, and I could do that, but for some reason I felt that it was appropriate, because I've never done this before, only a couple of times, to actually describe what happened when he left this world. So I'm offering my millions of obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, who gave me great mercy, not just in this final disappearance pastime, but from when I met him also. Sorry, I'm going to try and collect myself a bit. So Chandrika and I, Chandrika Dasi is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. We're in Mayapur for the GPC meetings. We're both working in the Vrindavan Gurukula, and we had to go there for some related meetings, Gurukul related meetings. And the meetings were on the 4th floor of the Conch building. Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj's room was also on the 4th floor because it was not possible for him to go up and down the stairs on this day. Generally, you know, he couldn't walk. So they arranged it so that he could easily attend the GPC meetings, and he was in our meetings. And I noticed that when, you know, when he came into the meeting that day, it was the day of Srila Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur's appearance. And Chandrika and I had been to to the Samadhi, his Samadhi, and prayed. And it was such a beautiful, it was a potent day. And we were really feeling a lot of mercy coming. It felt so natural to sit at the feet of Srila Saraswati Thakur and beg for his mercy and pray. And everything we did in that Mutt compound, Radhakund, Govardhan Parikrama, you know, Archaman at Radhakund and Shamakund and Srila Gokashodas Babaji Maharaj, so everything was full of potency. And then we had to attend the meetings, and Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj came in and sweetly smiled at us. And but Chandrika had never met him. She really wanted to meet him. And I had met him when he came to Australia in 1990. And so, you know, I was resting that afternoon after the meetings. Oh, one thing I noticed in the meetings, while the people there may not have understood or appreciated the glories of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, I noted and even opposed him. Sorry, is there a problem? Haribol.
Oh no, don't tell me.
We can hear you.
Okay, all right. I noticed that when they were talking with each other very casually, asking, what's your opinion? And whenever they asked Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj's opinion, really naturally, they folded their palms in respect and said, oh Maharaj. He just drew that out of them. They didn't do that with anyone else. So I noted that. And then that afternoon, I was resting in the room with Chandrika and I had a room in the long building. And there was a knock at the door. Chandrika came to the door. I was resting and she was out. So she knocked and she said, Vaijanti, it seems that we're leaving tomorrow back to Vrindavan. Please, can you go to the restaurant and get some prasad for the trip? So I made it down to the restaurant. And as I was coming out of the restaurant at that time was right by the main gate. As I was coming out, she appeared again, this time with Bhaktarupa Prabhu. And she said, Bhaktarupa Prabhu's arranged a darshan with Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj and will be able to go this evening. And she was so excited because she so much wanted to meet him. And I said, Chandrika, do you have a question? You can't go and meet a Vaishnava like this without having a question, you know, some questions. And so I went off to my room and she went off to the ground floor of the Conch building, where I met her later. And she has big handwriting and she's She's like me. We're both very intense, and she'd written pages of questions. So then we looked through all the questions and we considered which one would please him the most. And we never dreamt that we would never get off the first question, but we numbered them. I think we numbered about 4 questions. And then we went up the stairs, and there were many devotees standing outside the room. Probably, I don't know how many, 10, 12, 15. And I remember thinking, oh, it's going to be a group darshan. But it wasn't. They did not come in. And Chandrika and I entered the room, and there were 4 brahmacharis, I think, or boys sitting behind. There were 2 beds parallel, and there were 4 boys sitting behind one of the beds. And they did not say one word the entire time. They just sat very quietly. And so we offered our pranam, and Bhaktirupa Prabhu said, this is Chandrika Dasi, she's your god sister, and she has been waiting for a long time to meet with you. And then there was a sweet exchange, and he said, and this is Vaijayanti Mala, she's the wife of Narada Muni. And in Australia, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, you know how he always had that target person when he gave Harikatha? There was often a person in his class, and he'd point to there. Often it was Mathuranath, right? We know. Mathuranath Prabhu. But anyway, when Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj was in Australia, it was my husband. And so, he'd be like, Narada Muni, do you know that Narada Muni? Do you understand that Narada Muni? And it was a whole thing. And my husband said one day I sort of hid as best I could. But he said he still found him, Narada Muni. So when, she said this is, the wife of Narada Muni, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj just laughed very softly, sweetly. And I said, Maharaj, I've been in Vrindavan now for 5 years, since 91. But you've not come you've not come since I've been there. And he said, I can't use he said, I need a commode. Those sitting toilets, not the squat ones. He said, because I had an operation on my foot. And at that point, and I've reflected on this later, what inconceivable fortune we had. He picked up his foot and he showed us the bottom of his foot. I mean, inconceivable blessing. He picked up and he showed us the bottom of his foot and the scar that was at the bottom of his foot. And he said, this is why I can't come. So then Chandrika asked her question, which is how to relate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Gambhira Leela with Krishna's Dwarka Leela. They're both feeling separation. And Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj began to speak. Now, the room, when we entered the room, sorry, my mind's going all over the place, so don't mind if this is not necessarily chronological, sequential. When we entered the room, there was in the building, the conch building, it was full of, it was for the GBC people, and they were all in their meetings. And so naturally, they had their computers, and every single room, you could see the light of a computer as you walk by, and people were walking around with black briefcases, and it's natural, you know what I mean? I'm not criticizing that, but the contrast, when we entered Srila Gaur, it reminded me of my own Guru Maharaj's room. Like this glowed, this saffron, and it was so soft, and everything was so warm, and there was an altar between the 2 beds, and there were flowers, and just his presence. And that was the one thing that really struck me, the stark contrast. So then he proceeded to speak, and he was describing how Krishna, was now, if it were nowadays, the whole thing would have been recorded, but in 1996 it was not. And so he was describing how Krishna was lying on the bed in Dwarka, and he was crying out, Radhe, 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 Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. And he's cried it out so loudly. And at the time, there was so much controversy because my Gurudev, his mission was to delineate the goal of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, service to Srimati Radharani, and that was, and always fully backed up with Tattva Siddhant. And that was often misunderstood. So the word gopi had become a no word. You don't say that word. So when he did this, my eyes just went wide. I thought, he is so absorbed in the reality, the absolute reality, the absolute truth. The rules of others and the opinions made no, it didn't impact him. It's not even like he was in defiance of them. It didn't touch him. That, like it didn't touch him. He was absorbed in that reality. And it was beautiful. And while he spoke, he was very, very animated. And he was acting out, Jagannath's arms and the big, big eyes. And he would say this many times, he would talk about, and he was very animated, but very soft. His voice was very soft. And one of the boys sitting behind the bed told me later, I can't remember who, he said he's seen him tell that story many times, but he's never seen him tell it the way he did this, this particular night. So, we listened, and I'm sorry, I can't remember all the details. It was the first time I'd heard the pastime. And, and at one point, Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj asked for his grunts to be brought. And again, this was a stark contrast to the other rooms. And as you all know, they were delivered to him wrapped in a gamsha or cloth, some cloth. Was it a gamsha? And a big pile. And he undid that, and he searched for a book, and he pulled it out, and then he continued telling the pastime. And actually, my back then was in a really bad way. My lower back was so sore. I hope you don't mind, I'm just needing to make it personal, so I'm not meaning to bring in my own, but it is sort of related. It was so sore, and I knew that there were two beds. He was sitting on one, and there was another one in front of me. And I knew that if I just could rest my elbow on that bed, it would bring my back so much relief. And it was getting so almost distractingly painful. But I thought, if it were my Gurudev, I know that he would know where I was coming from, but I didn't, that I wouldn't intend no disrespect, but I didn't want to disrespect Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj, and I didn't want to, I didn't know him so well. But his mood was so soft, and he was so absorbed, and my back was so sore. So I thought, let me try it, and I'll keep a very close eye on him. And if he, in any way flinches or expresses disapproval, or that it was inappropriate, then I'll just tolerate. And so, so very slowly I leant over, and I just rested my elbow on the bed, and it did make all, and he didn't flinch. He was in another world. He didn't, there was no, it felt like a natural thing to do, and it was. And actually, I wouldn't have done it under any other circumstances, because I know he wanted proper maryada, and he wanted to see others observing that. So, anyway, I was able to listen to the rest of the pastime, and he, I'm just hoping I'm remembering. I'm actually writing this down at the moment, my whole memory after 25 years, and which I found a paper, and I'm going to share that. So any details I'm missing here will be in there, because I'm just speaking from memory now. And so we sat down before him, and he continued speaking, and he reached the part where Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna entered, he arrived at Nidhuvan in the pastime, because he's relating the most esoteric conception of Rath Yatra, the proper Gaudiya conception. There are so many conceptions of Rath Yatra, and amongst people in general in the Puri area, and I'm sure you're aware of these very well. But he was narrating the truly authentic conception of Rath Yatra. So he reached the part where Krishna arrives at Nidhuvan, and Radharani is lying there in a state of such deep separation that she, the only way the gopis could tell if she were still there, still present, was by holding a cotton swab under her nose. And I remember this part. I'm sharing the parts I remember with crystal clarity. And even though I've read the full thing since, and anyway, so the cotton swab was placed under, and then it slightly moved, and they could tell that she was still there. She was still alive. So then Krishna arrived, and Lalita, this is something that's a really strong memory, Lalita whispered in Radharani's ear, and Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj whispered it so softly, Krishna has come. And then he said, and then Vishaka went to Krishna and said, Srimati Radhika is here. I don't, maybe he said Radharani has come. I'm not, anyway, I'm sure you know this. And then he said, and then Krishna came into the Kunj, and there was eye-to-eye union. And while Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj had been speaking, he'd reached a certain point in the narration, and he'd sort of slow down and stop. Oh, that's one thing. And at a certain point, his servant turned on the fan. And I noticed that when the fan was turned on, his breathing changed. And you know how, like when someone has asthma, they have this wheezing in their breathing. And I noted that, and I was a little cross with the servant. Why they? I thought the two were connected, the fan and the wheezing, but of course we find out later that this was a symptom of deep ecstasy and deep separation that was in his own heart. But at the time I didn't know that, and I was a little upset with the servant. And I talked about it with Chandrika later. At that moment, she had noticed tears in Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj's eyes. I did not notice the tears, and she did not notice the wheezing, which I thought the wheezing was, she was sitting closer. I was a little further away. But yeah, we both noted two different things. And then I asked him, but Maharaj, why Puri? Why Puri? I mean, it's a Vrindavan, Dwarka pastime. How does Puri come in? And he started to speak. I cannot remember. This is my eternal regret. I can tell you, I've tried so many times to dredge my memory to try and remember what he said, but it's gone. He spoke for only 30 seconds, 40 seconds. I don't know, something like that. And then he folded his palms and he said, I'm very sorry, I cannot speak. And whereas before, throughout the narration, Chandrika had been asking him, because she was just so at the edge of her seat, she was so excited. We both were, but she was, I was watching her, you know, and I was watching her whole face, and, you know, Bhaktirupa Prabhu also with wide eyes, and Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj was glancing at him with so much affection. And she, so occasionally Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj would slow down, and as if he was concluding his narration, and then Chandrika would say, what happened next? And then his own love for the pastime, then he became excited by her enthusiasm, and again he continued to narrate the pastime. And that had happened a few times, 2, 3, I don't know. But when he said, I'm very sorry, I cannot speak, I knew that was it. I knew that at that point there was no asking for more. There was no, you know, there was no asking what happened next, or can you speak longer? And so we just offered our pranam, and he said it so much, with so much affection, so softly, and we just offered our pranam and left the room. Bhaktirupa Prabhu escorted us out, and we were walking down the stairs, and we got to the bottom of the stairs, and then 2 devotees ran past us furiously, saying, we've got to get a doctor, he's really sick. And you could imagine, I had just left the room. All he had said is, I'm very sorry, I cannot speak, and I'd heard some wheezing. I just thought maybe there was a connection. I had no idea. I had no idea of what was about to transpire. So we're at the bottom of the, you know, and my first thought was, it couldn't be that serious. We just were speaking to him 2-3 minutes ago. And anyway, so we continued, and outside at the bottom of the conch building, there are those stone benches. So I sat on one, and Chandrika wandered off a little away, and I was talking to Dara from Australia. And then 2 girls who I didn't know came over to me and said, they were just walking away, they came over, I don't know if they must have known Dara. And they said, oh, did you hear Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj just left this world? And I ran over to Chandrika and I said, he's left. And we just flew back up those stairs. And as we got closer and closer to the 4th floor, we could hear, Prabhupada's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We could hear that louder and louder as we came closer. And there were many devotees standing outside the room singing. And inside the room, there were Bhaktarupa Prabhu. He was sitting on that first bed, the one that I had leant on. And he had his head on the bed and his arms like this on the bed. And he was just in prayer. And then there were some disciples in the room, but the only people allowed in were other, prominent people, GBC people and sannyasis. They were the only ones given entrance. And we stayed there. And then the servant came to the door. And we couldn't see anything except Bhaktarupa Prabhu. And Anirudh Prabhu from Melbourne was in there. And we said to him, could we please speak to Bhaktarupa Prabhu? And he stood up from his position and came to the door and he saw us and he said, just pray, just pray. And he immediately left and went back to praying. And then the servant who turned on the fan, he came to the door and he saw us. But very naturally, he was very emotional and he was upset with us and very upset. And I won't go into the details of that, but I'm more upset with Chandrika. And I said to Chandrika, you should go. You should not stay here. And so she went back to the room. Then I also, sometime later, joined her. And when I got to the room, she was just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And she'd written, we were sat and we talked. I think she'd written, it was all just a bit of a blur, the whole thing. And then we could hear the Maha Mantra because we were on the, from where we were, we could hear the mantra coming from the conch building. So then we realized we have to go and try one more time to receive his darshan. Otherwise, this is not going to register. And to this day, to tell you the truth, I don't think it's registered. And so we went back, and this time we were allowed entrance into the room. And the room was so soft. There were some brahmacharis. They'd put him sitting up on the bed, and he was covered with garlands. And I'm sure many people could tell this story much more beautifully and better with more detail than I can. But anyway, he was garlanded, and boys were softly massaging his legs and weeping, and girls, the women were off putting their head at his feet and weeping. And we offered our pranam, and then someone said, all women leave the room. So we went downstairs and we waited in the lobby. And then not long after, very quickly after, I think they put him, I think it was a Vyasa-san, that's what I remember. And they carried, and I remember, on the ground floor, as you come down the stairs, that last landing before the final descent to the ground floor. So as you can't see anything before that point. So then he appeared there, and it took my breath away. His skin was like porcelain. It was pink and glowing, and he was so radiant, and he was garlanded. He looked so beautiful. And they brought him down, and there were hundreds of devotees. And then they took his transcendental form to Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi, and Vaishnav there, devotee there, sang Ohe Vaishnav Thakur. And then they came back, they brought him back down into the temple room. I think first to Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. And then before Radha Madhav. And at this time, I think it was very late. Maybe, oops, I'm sorry. I'm nearly finished. Okay. And so it was around 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And they took the garland of Radha Madhav. I can't remember whether it was Radha, but anyway, they took massive garland and they brought it down. Everyone was there. The temple room was packed, and they garlanded him. And then there was a sudden announcement from, I think, my poor Chandra Prabhu came to the door and said, there's a land raid and they've got sticks. And then someone, I don't know whether it was Lokanath Maharaj, I can't remember, said, okay, we're going to take him, Srila Govinda Maharaj, out of the temple room. The women should stay close behind him. And then the last mercy we received was Chandrika and I, somehow or other, in that massive crowd of people, we got to be right behind him. We stood directly behind him. He's Vyasa's son, and we followed him around, and then he went out and into the car, and he was taken to Bhubaneswar. And then so many things happened that I won't go into because they're irrelevant and we're out of time. I remember when I returned to Mathura and I went to see my Gurudev, someone was talking to him about what happened, and I walked in and they said Vajanti was there. And he turned to me, and it's always gratifying to receive the attention of your Gurudev, but I've never received it in the same way as on this day. And he just turned to me and he said, what happened? And he let me, and he just looked at me with so much sobriety as I narrated the pastime. And he said he was a pure Vaishnav and had so much, we had so much regard for me, and he spoke other things that I can't remember now. But I just, as I said, I'm just remembering snippets because it's all I'm capable of doing. But it was very sober, very sober. And I said to him, Srila Gurudev, I think, back then we used to call him Maharaj, I said, I think some of his disciples will take shelter of you now. And he just looked at me with a very sober face and just went, no smiling, just softly nodded. And that was that. I will conclude there because I'm a little over time, and I think I've very comfortably been able to describe everything that has come to my mind now. And as I said, I will write this and share it with the devotees so that, I feel like I want to do that service. So I'm begging Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj to always be merciful to me. He was from the very beginning. I remember when he came to New Govardhan and he was giving such strong classes, and he would speak so strongly about women. And it was so, and I remember sitting there thinking, I can sit here and get disturbed, or I can sit here and identify as a Jivatma and receive his mercy. And I chose to, by his mercy, and I thought for so many years it was my doing that I chose to identify as a Jiva and not as a woman. But now I understand, by his mercy, I was given the intelligence to appreciate. He was saying they were all beautiful things. And because of that, I felt so protected in my spiritual life, because because of that, I never got to misidentify with my material body. Of course I always 24/7 am, but you know what I'm saying. He gave me a focus with which to proceed in my bhakti. And so I hope that came across right. Anuradha is reminding me time's up. So if that came across incorrectly, please forgive me. But okay, thank you so much. Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj ki jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Swami Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Thank you, Prabhu, for letting me speak and share that.
You gave us a gift of tears in our heart. Thank you so much. And I see so many devotees are writing in. Thank you. This is so amazing. You really, really pleased everybody so much. Thank you. I can't express it enough. Please write. Please write what you remember, and please.
I'm in the process.
You can give a copy to Anuradha, and maybe she can send to me. I would like that very, very much. I have a couple of reflections I'd like to offer. Just the story. I was there also that day, and Bhakti Rupaprabhu told me some other details which we wrote about. You may know, some devotees may not. That when they ran to get a doctor, they got one devotee whose name was Damodar Swarup. And Damodar Swarup has a PhD PhD in Ayurvedic medicine, and his family have been Ayurvedic doctors for many generations. He's a real deal. He has a gold medal from the World Health Organization for successfully treating AIDS. He's a really awesome doctor. And so it was he who came to Guru Maharaj, and he told me later that when he took Guru Maharaj's pulse, Guru Maharaj was still there. He was still present.
Yes.
And then a few minutes later, again, he took his pulse and he was gone. And he told me that Damodar Swarup was initiated by Bhakti Kusum Shraman Maharaj, who was a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Both of Damodar Swarup's parents were disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He's a very learned Vaishnava from a Vaishnava family. He knew the tradition and the Siddhanta. And he told me that the second time Guru Maharaj was gone, and he looked at his body and he said, I've seen a number of deaths. I've been a doctor a long time. I've seen a number of people have left their body, but I've never seen anyone leave their body like this. He said, on his body were all the symptoms of Asasaktikara Bhav. He said there was no physical reason. There was no heart attack. That was on the death report, that he left because of a heart attack. But it wasn't an ordinary heart attack. He said that there was no physical reason for him leaving. He just became ecstatic and left this world. And for you to share that is so special. And last comment.
That's his mercy.
Yes.
Raghava remember this, but it's very appropriate. Some of our previous comments we were sharing with Raghava. How did Guru Maharaj come back, his physical body, his Vapu to Bhubaneswar? Well, that year was the first year that someone drove Guru Maharaj's car to Mayapur, just in case there was some problem. There's no reason. Guru Maharaj never had done that. And so that car was there, and they brought Guru Maharaj's transcendental body and put it in the car. And who was it that brought Guru Maharaj back? That was Gokul.
Yes.
Wow. As Raghava called him, kind of a transcendental in-between or messenger. So I want to stop there. I'd like to also just address, there's so many senior devotees here. Srila Prabhu is here. My dear godbrother Sundarananda Prabhu from Bali is here. And I feel really terrible that we don't have slots for everybody to speak. They asked me here at the temple to just keep it to a certain amount of time. And there's so many senior devotees who wanted to speak. So please forgive me. And I want to honor all the devotees. And I want to thank you very much. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, Mother Yena Samarpayate, you should finish with something sweet. I don't know if sweet is the right word to describe what you just spoke, but maybe nectar and poison mixed together would be a better way to put it. But what an amazing.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share.
And we're a little over time, but I don't care if anybody has a problem with that. Just pretend that you're in India or that we're in India, because but I would just like to invite the devotees just for a minute or two, if anybody has any reflection, any comments they want to make on any of the previous talks or remembrances, or maybe you want to ask some questions of Vajayanti or Anuradha or Raghava or anybody else who's present here. This is our opportunity for that. So please, if anybody wants to take advantage of that. Or Raghava, do you want to add anything? Or maybe Srila Prabhu. We didn't give you any chance. I wasn't expecting you to be here today. My dear godbrother Pushkar Rakshapa was also here. He's going to speak. He'll be the last speaker in the last program. Srila Prabhu, if you have any comments, or Sundarananda Prabhu, you both have a lot to say, I know. Anybody else? Okay. Sundarananda Prabhu has written something. He says, Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranams, Vajayanti Mataji, Vajayanti Mala Mataji. Million thanks to you for your very beautiful narrations. Really, you got unlimited mercy from Srila Gurudev.
You really did.
Seeing the two of you together is very beautiful, by the way, too. Okay, so there's nothing else. So our next session is going to be just a little less than 7 hours away from now. And it'll be 6:30 to 8:30 in the evening here in India. And we'll have another short video of Guru Maharaj, which is just a 3-minute video. He speaks for 3 minutes about Vaishnava apparatus, very, very powerful. I want to invite everybody to take part in that. And then right after that video, we'll have a very special devotee who is Guru Maharaj's personal servant and Guru Maharaj's driver. And I saw he had a very wonderful, he's a disciple, but he had a wonderful friendly relationship with him. His name was Ananta in his previous ashram. Now he's B.V. Tapasvi Maharaj. And he'll be speaking then. We're looking forward to that very much. And tonight also we'll hear from Madhukar Prabhu, Anupama Madanalasa from Belgium, Vaisheshika Guru Prabhu's disciple, Lokanath Maharaj will be there, Sachinanda Maharaj, Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj. We have a number of very special devotees tonight. So if you can take part, please do. And I want to thank everybody so much, so much. I can't tell you, because taking part in this, I can feel the presence of my Guru Maharaj. And that means so much to us. Thank you all very much. Shri Gurudeva Ki Jai. Vanchakalpa Gurubhishcha.
Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Vaishnavi.
Hari Hari Bol. Radhe Radhe.